Imagine I offered you a choice. You can either take a 99% chance of receiving a painful electric shock, or you can pay a cash fee to avoid it entirely. How much would you pay? In a behavioral economics study by Yuval Rottenstreich and Christopher C., the average answer was $10. But if the risk was lowered to a mere 1% chance of the exact same shock, the price didn't drop as you'd expect. The average person was still willing to pay $7. We pay nearly the same amount to dodge a near impossibility as we do to escape a near certainty. This is probability neglect. When facing a threat, the human brain systematically ignores the mathematical continuum of risk, treating a tiny chance and a massive probability as if they are the same thing. If we entirely disregard mathematical probability when making risky decisions, like buying a lottery ticket or scaling a mountain, what metric is the brain using? We substitute statistical probability with something far more primal: emotional magnitude and vividness. We judge danger not by the actual odds of it happening, but by how easily we can picture the outcome and how intensely that image makes us feel. Take the paradox of climbing Mount Everest. There is a documented 1% death rate, yet thousands are drawn to the 60% success rate, overlooking the extreme freezing danger of the ascent. This happens because of the availability heuristic, a mental shortcut where our brains judge the likelihood of an event simply by how easily examples of it come to mind. This leads directly to survivorship bias. Society is flooded with the vivid, triumphant stories and photos of the climbers who survive. Because those stories are highly available to us, we feel as though success is highly probable, but the 1% who die on the mountain cannot tell their stories. They become invisible data, information our brains fail to factor into the risk assessment. When evidence of failure is invisible, we assume a false sense of safety. We mistake the visibility of a story for the probability of an outcome. Our reliance on narrative is so strong that adding details actually breaks our ability to process logic. In a classic experiment, subjects read about Linda, a 31-year-old outspoken philosophy major concerned with social justice. They were asked which is more likely: A, Linda is a bank teller, or B, Linda is a bank teller active in the feminist movement. Most people choose scenario B. Because the added feminist detail feels representative of the description, we fall into the conjunction fallacy. But mathematically, a specific subset, like feminist bank tellers, can never be more probable than the broad category of all bank tellers. The feminist tellers are entirely contained within the larger group. Adding vivid details makes a scenario statistically less likely, but more believable to us. We mistake a vivid story for a safe bet. In everyday life, this leads to fatal errors. Researcher Jonathan Barron interviewed a subject who refused to wear a seatbelt because they deeply feared the highly unlikely worst-case scenario of being trapped inside a burning or sinking wreck. The interview illustrates our tendency to reduce a complex spectrum of risk into a simple binary. We think an event will either happen or it won't, discarding the actual odds. A rational actor would use expected utility theory, weighing the benefits of an action against the exact probability of its risks. But calculating expected utility requires too much cognitive effort for the human brain to process on the fly. We abandon the math in favor of irrational gut feelings. When probability neglect shifts from individual choices to public policy, it stops being a curious quirk and begins costing lives on a massive scale. After the terrorist attacks of September 11th, the emotional magnitude and vividness of the tragedy were so high that nationwide probability neglect took over. Millions of people were terrified to fly and chose to drive long distances instead. They moved away from air travel toward a statistically far more dangerous form of transportation. In a desperate attempt to avoid a highly vivid but statistically tiny risk, the public unwittingly exposed themselves to a massive, lethal threat on the highways. We cannot trust our intuition when it comes to danger. Our brains are built to process stories, not statistics. To truly survive, we must actively pause, ignore the vivid narratives, and seek out the invisible data.